Welcome to First Dates and Soulmates, the romance podcast that has some strong feelings about men in the 1960s and their role as a romantic lead. I am your host, Nikki McKnight.
And I am Meg Casebolt.
And folks, we are back with the next installment in our Rom-Coms Through the Ages series. We did the 1940s with His Girl Friday and Philadelphia Story. We did the 1950s with Roman Holiday and Prince and the Showgirl. And today we are here to take you on a journey, a small journey, through the 1960s of some of the top romantic comedy films of that decade.
I did not think that I could dislike a hero more than I disliked Olivier. But whoa, did My Fair Lady really burn me. Oh.
I tell you, we were originally supposed to have recorded this episode a couple weeks ago, but I just was so busy with work, and Meg very graciously said we could put it off until I had time to actually watch the films. So today we are talking about two films. The first is The Apartment from 1960, starring Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine. And we are also talking about My Fair Lady from 1964, starring, of course, Audrey Hepburn and Rex Harrison. Meg, what was your experience with these films?
I had never seen The Apartment. And I told my husband, we're watching The Apartment. He was like, oh my God, that's one of my favorite movies. And I was like, it's never come up. But like he flew from New York to Iowa in September to see his mom. And they just sat and watched The Apartment because they love it so much. And I was like, I had no idea. I'd already watched it. No, normally I'll be like, hey, babe, you want to watch this movie? You want to watch Twilight with me? No,
thank you for your sacrifice, Ben.
That one he did watch with me. That's like the only one. But often he's, no, I'm good. But that one he would have watched with me. And I watched it solo. And then, Nikki, I swear, when you picked My Fair Lady, I was like, I totally know My Fair Lady. Because who hasn't been dragged to a middle school or high school play of pretty much every musical? So, I just lumped it in as, I've seen this. I've seen My Fair Lady. I've seen Bye Bye Birdie. I've seen Annie. I've seen Fame. I've seen fucking Finding Nemo Jr. I've seen all the normal plays that every person has seen, and now my kids are growing up, and so I have to see all. I've seen Elf Jr. I've seen all. I thought I'd seen it. No, I just knew The Rain in Spain is mainly on the plane, and that was pretty much it. And so I came into it cold, and goddamn did I hate it. I hated it so much, Nikki.
And what a boon to you that it's over 3 hours long.
It probably took me 2 hours to watch it because the songs were all so long that I was like, skip hey, they're still singing, they're still dancing, skip. And then, okay, spoiler alert, I didn't finish it.
Yeah.
I didn't finish it because my Apple rental ran out. And I was like, I'm not paying another $4 for this pile of
garbage. Read the Wikipedia article.
So what worked out really well for me is that I stopped at the moment where she was like, forget you, I'll just marry, I've already forgotten Freddie. Forget you, I'll just marry Freddie. And I was like, fuck yeah, I'm done. I'm out. As far as I'm concerned, she left this piece of shit behind.
Oh man, let me tell you the thoughts. So I had never seen The Apartment, and I had heard of Jack Lemmon and I'd heard of Shirley MacLaine, but I'd never really watched any of their films. They just weren't popular in the same way for me that Hepburn was, that Monroe was. Name recognition, but I didn't know their work. I did know My Fair Lady. Growing up, we had the 2 VHS copy, right? You've
because
got,
it was so very long.
Fancy sleeve. You have 2 separate VHS tapes and intermission, which I love that they still had that screen on in the digital copy because I rented it through MGM through my Prime account. And it was like intermission or interlude or something. It had a fancy name for it. And I was like, yes, this is what happens when back in the day they could not fit Avengers Infinity War on tape. It took 3 or 4. Titanic
it
was
would have
2
been
VHS
reels.
tapes.
Yes. When it was in the theaters, it would have been on the. I'm making the hand gesture of the
charades thing. Movie.
Yeah, exactly. 3 words. First word my, because of course it's not about the woman. It's about his possession. Okay, so you had the VHS.
Yeah, and I knew it. I liked it at the time. I didn't find Rex Harrison was older than Audrey Hepburn when he made the film, so it wasn't even as a young child, I looked at him and thought, what a man. I was like, he's singing, but she looks beautiful. But I didn't really think too much else of it when I was older. Where I live in the Niagara area, we have the Shaw Festival, the big theater company. They put on plays all through the year. It's big in the summer, but they put on George Bernard Shaw plays. So this is My Fair Lady is based on a Shaw play called Pygmalion. It's the musical version of it. So I have actually seen Pygmalion at the Shaw Festival 20 years ago. I wasn't even living here at the time that I saw it. So I was familiar. But yeah, I agree. I did much the same thing. I was like, I don't need to hear this song. I'm going to skip it. This was the Tom Bombadil in Lord of the Rings skipping ahead for me. I don't need 35 pages talking about a tree. No. I don't need 5 minutes of her singing about Wouldn't It Be Lovely. And it's not even her. It's not even Audrey Hepburn's singing voice. She
not even Audrey Hepburn.
Marnie Wilson, I think. It is what it is. Marnie Nixon, sorry, was her singing voice. But they are both cultural milestones in terms of 1960s films.
They are. And it won't just be Meg ranting about misogyny the entire time. It will also be, what were the conditions under which this was popular?
Yes, there's lots that are happening in the 1960s. But before we jump into the cultural context and our misandrist rants, I guess I'll call them, a quick logline of both of these films for those of you who have not seen it. So as I said, The Apartment came out in 1960. It stars Jack Lemmon as CC Baxter and Shirley MacLaine as Fran Kubelik, and directed by Billy Wilder. So CC Baxter is a low-level insurance clerk in New York City, and in attempt to get promoted and make more money, he allows all of his bosses and the men in the upper echelons of his company to use his apartment for their affairs in exchange for getting good feedback, good reviews, and in exchange for career advancement. He has a crush on Fran Kubelik, played by Shirley MacLaine, who is one of the elevator operators in the building. And he discovers that Fran is the mistress of Sheldrake, who Sheldrake is ultimately the executive that controls his promotion. So one day, CC Baxter gets called into Sheldrake's office, and he thinks this is the moment. All of the times I've had to stand outside my own apartment at 11 o'clock at night while my bosses have affairs with these women, it's all led up to this. And Sheldrake says to him, I know this is what you do because I know everything. I will give you this promotion if you let me use my apartment with my mistress, who turns out to be Fran. Lots of other things happen, which I'm sure we'll get into, but it is very much looking at what does CC Baxter have to do to advance his career and what are the consequences of that for Fran and eventually Baxter. Many things to say culturally about what's going on with The Apartment. And then we have My Fair Lady 1964, directed by George Cukor, based on the musical by Lerner and Loewe, which is then based on the play Pygmalion by George Bernard Shaw. We have Audrey Hepburn as Eliza Doolittle, singing voiced by Marnie Nixon, and Rex Harrison as Professor Henry Higgins. Professor Henry Higgins, Rex Harrison, did play this role on Broadway, which is why he was given the role in the film. Julie Andrews originated the role of Eliza Doolittle in the Broadway production, but wasn't seemed to be big enough of a star to get the role in the film. So it was given to Audrey Hepburn. Funny story, Julie Andrews won the Oscar that year for Mary Poppins. So sweet revenge, because apparently both of them fucking hated working with Rex Harrison. But Henry Higgins played...
And I think she actually thanked the casting director in her speech where she won the Oscar. She was like, thanks to the casting director of My Fair Lady for not putting me in it because she wanted to get away from Rex Harrison.
I don't blame him. I don't blame her.
And she got Mary Poppins instead. She won it. She good for her. Good for Julie.
Yeah, good for her. Nobody wants to work with Rex Harrison. But he plays Henry Higgins, a phonetics expert who makes a bet with his compatriot Colonel Pickering that he can take Eliza Doolittle, a Cockney flower girl, and transform her, mold her, much like Pygmalion, into someone that can pass as a duchess. And Eliza goes along with it because her dream is to own a flower shop, and this will make her look and sound more respectable as someone who could have such a nice shop as that in London society. Again, lots of shit happens. I'm sure we're going to get into it. And one of the most disappointing film endings of all time.
You and I, generally, we're like, we don't need grand gestures. You know what would have been a single gesture. A single one.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
An acknowledgement that you're in the room would be nice.
Okay. Where do we even want to start?
Can we start with The Apartment so that way I get a chance to feel good about myself for a little bit?
Yes, please. Okay, just a quick trigger warning before we get into the discussion of these films for discussions of suicide, self-harm, and drug overdose. So if that is something that you need to take care with, please take care. Tell me your thoughts on The Apartment.
I loved this so much more than I expected. Especially, I knew Jack Lemmon just from, Some Like It Hot and Grumpy Old Men and nothing in between.
That's a wide range for
It's a wide range. I knew Shirley MacLaine not from any of her movies, but from the Psychic Hotline connection.
That's delightful.
So literally nothing about these people essentially. Jack Lemmon is a gem. He is delightful. The way that he just shows up and he's so optimistic and he like lets everything roll off his back, and he's such a people pleaser and it screws him over so badly, but he still wants to stay in the know. He wants to be likable. Those scenes where he was like sick and still had to leave his apartment because he like lent it to somebody and they wouldn't give it up, and he's just like coughing and sneezing and everywhere. Just like the acting chops on Jack Lemmon was incredible. Yeah. And then Shirley MacLaine, just it was such a difficult character to play. Fran is a character of being just like jaded and exhausted, and she'd started over so many times, and she kept falling in love with the wrong person, and all the men in her life except her brother-in-law treat her like shit, and she's gotten so used to it, and that's just, she's resigned to the fact that's the only thing that she deserves, and that's such a heartbreaking character. God.
What a good contrast, though, in terms of male heroes. You mentioned Olivier at the beginning with Prince and a Showgirl. CC Baxter, what I really enjoy about him is he's bumbly, he's nerdy, he's trying so hard to be cool with Fran, and my dude, you're not. And then when he buys himself this really fancy hat after the promotion, he puts it on, he goes, am I a person that wears a hat? Does this look good? And he goes to Fran, and he has no idea Fran is dealing with all the things she is dealing with. He does not see how she is suffering under the workplace inequalities that exist around them. But he's like, am I a bowler hat person? How does this look? And she's, yes, you look great. You look fine. You're this.
When you come to the movies with me, I have tickets to the movies because Sheldrake gave him tickets to the movies to get him out of his house, and he's like, Fran, come with me. He's just like a really
go see the Music Man. Yeah.
He's a golden retriever, and he's just so delightful. Music Man. There's another production that I've seen way too many times.
I've been in the Music Man.
Yeah. Oklahoma, same. Thought I just rolled My Fair Lady into all of them.
But the reason I like that of the two, Baxter as a romantic lead, is this like, he's a bumbling fop, he's dumb, he has good intentions, but he's so socially awkward that he really doesn't understand how he might be coming across. He's the kind of guy that would go into a situation in a workplace and make a joke to try to seem cool, and the people around him are like, yeah, that was not funny or appropriate. This is weird, you're not that cool. So I enjoy that he was there, because when we look at what was happening in the world in the 1960s, this is the introduction of second wave feminism.
Right.
The Feminine Mystique came out in 1963. So this is really about women moving beyond legal rights. Can we have suffrage? Can we have property rights? And now they're starting to address workplace inequality, reproductive rights, domestic violence, sexual liberation. The pill hits the market in the 1960s, which kind of starts that free love counterculture movement that will take us in through the 70s. So with all of that going on, that's why I like that they made Baxter the kind of fumbling one who is just as much a victim of the system as Fran is, but in a very different way.
Exactly. Like, he doesn't know that he's a victim of the system. He just thinks, oh, if I'm really nice, he's like such an idiot. If I'm just like really nice to my bosses, I'll totally get a promotion.
Yeah,
if I'm just like really good to them, then they'll like me. And if they like me and I do good work, this is a meritocracy, right?
Clearly, absolutely, that this is a meritocracy. Everybody around him, we can see, no, it's not.
Yeah. And I think also the 1960s was this time where the world was looking at the United States, and it was post-war and it was Cold War, and there was this idea of everybody's prosperous in the United States and everybody has jobs and they have food on the table and they have all these things. And this was a bit of not a satire necessarily, but look at the dirty side of that, which is, yes, people have these jobs and these tall skyscrapers and they have all this infrastructure around them. And look, there's even people whose job it is just to work the elevators, but it's also like corrupt as hell.
Yeah, the corporate ladder being this allegory or representation of the patriarchal machine and toxic masculinity, really, before it was even a thing. And they're both suffering under that system in different ways. One of the funny things I loved about this film was the opening, when you have Baxter's narration going, I'm CC Baxter and I live here and this is this many people and his company has 30,000 employees. Like, I've been an entrepreneur for far too long. I've worked with small businesses pretty much only for the last 20 years. That to have a company with 30,000 employees, I was like, in one building, not like different satellite offices or remote hybrid work. I was trying to do the math on this and I was like, why do you have so many people? 30,000 people is too many people.
When he explained, like, I have to leave my desk between 5:11 and 5:15 so that way I can take the elevator and it doesn't get backed up. I was like, oh shit. And like in a post-COVID world where it's like nobody even wants to go into the office, to have the office building be that much of a central point of this is where you spend 9.5 hours a day, every day, and you cannot leave because then you'll be in the wrong elevator group. Like, it's really trapped. And even post 9/11, I feel like all of us are like, no, you need to be able to leave the skyscrapers.
Yeah.
You need to be able to go faster. So much has changed.
Yeah, what a metaphor, too, talking about the elevator and the different floors. And they're on different floors. The hierarchy is both metaphorical and literal, which, if you think about it, I do think there is a satire component to this. Because have you ever watched American Psycho?
No.
The film with Christian Bale? That is probably one of the best films about toxic masculinity as satire. So the first time I saw that movie, I was a lot younger and I didn't quite get it. I was like, oh, this is just violent. What a horrible person Patrick Bateman is. But when you watch it now, one, it has a female director, and two, Christian Bale was very much in on the thing that Patrick Bateman was, this avatar of male fragility and toxic masculinity, which by today's standards, when you watch it, you're like, oh my God, how prescient was this film? There's very similar things that happen in American Psycho with the business card debate. Are you familiar with this scene? It's kind of
I've seen that scene.
Clipped. Yeah, so you have Patrick Bateman and all these other executives, and they're trying to one-up each other by showing each other their business cards. Mine is ivory with this font. Mine is eggshell with this font. And they're trying to really one-up each other with who has the better business card. The second part of that's really funny is they all have the exact same job title, which I think is like VP acquisitions or something like that. And then you have the one guy in their group who puts his card in and they're like, that's nice, Lewis. And they won't engage with him because they're like, he's a loser. And I think his name is Lewis. He gets very disappointed that they don't want to engage with him in the same day. CC Baxter is, I think, the precursor to a character like that, where people will play with him as long as it benefits them, but they're not really going to engage with them. They use him for his apartment so they can have sex. And Baxter has to manage, okay, this guy's more important. He does have to have the night that he wants. And he'll call 4 or 5 people. Can you change to Thursday? Can you change to Tuesday? And they come to his house. They drink his liquor. They scratch his records. And they stay an hour beyond when they said he was going to. So he's literally like on the street outside his apartment. And all of his neighbors think he is this Lothario fuckboy.
Yeah, just a womanizer.
Going through women every night of the week. And they really look down on him when he is actually the complete opposite.
I loved when the doctor next door was like, can I like take your body for science? Because you should not be able to have that much sex and still be standing up.
I love that you mentioned sex, though, because this is the other big thing that happened in the 60s. Not the fact that people were having sex. But for those who have been listening
Turns out people have been having sex for the entire span of humanity. Weird.
Oh my gosh.
Weird.
Oh my gosh.
But we couldn't talk about it or show a bedroom or any of those things in the Hays Code.
Yeah, so the Hays Code that we mentioned in the 1940s is where it came up a lot. It collapsed in the 60s. By the early 60s and even in the 50s when we were talking about Prince and the Showgirl, it was still in effect on things you could and could not show or could not talk about. Promiscuity or adultery could never be rewarded, so those people could never get a happy ending. You could never really talk about sex on screen. But it officially collapsed in 1968. And how this connects to The Apartment is Billy Wilder, the director. He originally was going to make this film in the 40s, but the Hays Code was in a place. He goes, I can't make the film I actually want, which is why he pushed it back to the 60s. When he had a little bit more freedom in the same way to show what he wanted to show.
Yeah, because to an extent, like, none of the people who are committing adultery are getting rewarded at the end. But, like, they still are. They don't get punished.
No, but just the fact that basically what happens with Fran is she wants to leave Sheldrake, who was the man that she was having an affair with, because he's never going to leave his wife. And Baxter's great. I will be there. Aren't I cool? I get Fran. But he sucks her back into it. And when Sheldrake ultimately says to her, I'm leaving now because it's Christmas. I have to go home with my family. Here's $100. Go buy yourself a gift. And she sees that.
What a piece of shit.
And it just breaks her. So she overdoses on drugs that she steals from the medicine cabinet because she thinks she's at Sheldrake's apartment. It's not. It's Baxter's. So he finds her overdosed and goes to his doctor neighbor, and all these things happen and they bring her back. But when she is in his apartment for those like 3 or 4 days recovering from her overdose, she talks about her sexual relationships. She talks about her suicide attempt when she was younger, and he talks about his suicide attempt when he was younger. She talks about, oh, I started smoking in cemeteries when I was 15. Go back 10 years before this film. None of this would have been able to be shown on TV, on screen at all.
Yeah. Even the conversations.
No, none of it would have been able to happen, which is just, wow. Like, it blows my mind again as we're watching these films in chronological order to see how small changes really change what's on
when
film.
You think about
Billy
Billy Wilder wanting to produce this in the 40s at the same time as His Girl Friday or Philadelphia Story, where it's very much, oh, the women can be sassy, but don't worry, they'll get back into their marriages and they'll be happy with those husbands that didn't satisfy them the first time around, who didn't change at all. Like that feeling of women can have careers, but they're not really meant for careers, are they? Like all of that would not have worked with the apartment at that point either. It wouldn't have landed at that point. But with the second wave feminism, with looking at what the expectations were, I read that like people would go up to, I can't remember the name of the actor who plays Sheldrake, but like people were used to seeing him in My Three Sons, and women would come up and hit him with their purses and be like, how dare you? How dare you?
Fred McMurray was Sheldrake. Yeah. Like, it's so funny. But what I love about the ending in this, because Fran has this overdose, she still is going to go back to Sheldrake, because while she's been recovering, Baxter has been reporting to Sheldrake, she's better, she's okay, do you want to come check on her? I am taking the blame for this happening. I am taking the blame that I was the one that broke her heart to protect you. What ends up happening is Sheldrake's secretary, who is one of his past mistresses, learns at the Christmas party about his relationship with Fran. And when she mentions this to Sheldrake, I know, oh, you're just on to the next one, on to the next one, on to the next one. He fires her, and the secretary goes, fuck this. She goes to Sheldrake's wife and is, do you know what your husband has been doing with all of these women in our building? And I was like, oh my God, feminine revenge. Thank you. Thank you for these comeuppance at least.
Yes. It's so good. It's so good that she finally gets to, like, because she actually is part of the reason she goes to Fran at the Christmas party. And she's just, so you know, I was there first. He never left his wife for me. He's not leaving his wife for you. And that's part of the reason that Fran is like so distraught about it, because now she realizes she wasn't the only one. This isn't a single experience. This is a pattern of behavior. And as soon as Fran leaves, he's just going to move on to somebody else.
Yeah. Even his secretary mentions, he goes to this restaurant, he orders you this, he gives you, you sit in this table, and it's the exact same with all of these women. So when his secretary goes to his wife and his wife says, we're done, I'm divorcing you, Sheldrake uses that to go back to Fran to be like, I told you I would do it. I told you I would do it. So
I left my wife. I moved into the club, and then I'm going to move into the apartment. Basically, he's now I need the apartment because I need a place. So he's just going to take Baxter completely out of it and be like, I don't know where you need to go, but I can't just stay at the club.
And I think they're out for
piece of shit.
I think they're out for New Year's, and Fran looks around at everything and realizes that yes, he is a piece of shit. Baxter is the one that I like, and she runs back to the apartment. And Baxter has decided, I'm done. He's quit his job by this point because he's like, fuck Sheldrake. Fuck all of these men.
Let's talk about how he quits his job because it's so good. Yes. So Sheldrake's wife leaves him. And he's, okay, I took my suitcase. I moved into basically like the YMCA, the gym, like the men's club. But he's like, I can't have my like girlfriend come there. So I'm going to need the key. Oh, first of all, Baxter got the promotion. He's now like the executive assistant to Sheldrake. So he has keys to the executive washroom. And so then Sheldrake is, I'm going to need the key to your apartment tonight. So that way I can get together with Fran. Who, like, Baxter just spent 4 days nursing back to health after an overdose. And now Sheldrake's going to use his apartment when Sheldrake didn't even come visit this girl. And so he hands him the wrong key. He hands him the key to the executive washroom. Yeah. And Sheldrake's, no, this is the wrong key. He's like, no, it's not. And he just gets up and walks out because I can't do this anymore. That's the point that Baxter finally hits his breaking point, is not just, oh, people keep taking advantage of me. It's people keep taking advantage of me to mistreat this woman that I'm in love with and not even recognize that both of us are completely being negatively impacted by their entitled behavior.
Mm-hmm. You're so right. It's a great scene.
It's the best moment.
And I like
maybe
that,
the whole movie. I like the
it's
moment
one of
where
my
he hands him the
favorites.
wrong key. Ooh.
It's one of my favorite moments. And again, I know we keep talking about Baxter in this, but I think the reason why he stands out so much to me in this film and why I'm like, this is a male romantic lead that I actually really like, even as he's not the typical suave, charming Matthew McConaughey style romantic lead.
Or Cary Grant. Right?
Yeah, just the way that he thinks of Fran. And I think he recognizes this, that she is a victim of the system and he is complicit in that system that's harming her. And when he has that realization, it's almost like he's saying, I need to leave with my dignity because I've done all of these things in the name of getting this promotion and those things that are good on paper, but I would not be able to live with myself if I kept doing this. So he quits his job and he decides, I just need to leave this apartment. I'm going to give up the apartment that he says is $85 a month in rent and that was pretty expensive. I looked it up in like an inflation calculator that what would that be in today's dollars? That apartment is about $940 US today. That's still fucking cheap. Nobody's leaving that apartment. But he's like, this apartment it's got bad memories. My neighbors think I'm a man whore. I'm just going to go. I'm going to move on. I'm going to go find my new thing. So after Fran leaves Sheldrake at their typical restaurant on New Year's and she runs back and she sees that he's packing up and I'm done. I'm taking myself out of this equation. I don't want to go. And she gets out his playing cards because they have been playing gin rummy while she was recovering from her overdose. And she just deal me in. And that's how it ends.
Okay. Let me just break down the final moment because I thought this was one of the most brilliant things I've seen. So she runs across town because she finally realizes I'm done with Sheldrake. She breaks up with him. It's never happening again. She runs across town. You get like the city sprinting moment of her in her heels and her dress, and she wants to make it by midnight. And she gets there and she hears this banging sound and she thinks that he has a gun and she's banging on the door to try to get in because she thinks that he may have harmed himself. And the doctor's there and finally he opens the door and Baxter's sitting there. He's surrounded by his belongings because he's leaving. And he says, I love you, Miss Kubelik. And she says, shut up and deal. It's not just deal me in. It's shut up and deal. She has no need to hear I love you. She's heard I love you from so many people, treated her like shit. Mm-hmm. The words mean nothing to Fran at this point. And finally, Baxter is, I love you. He's finally able to say it. He's finally able to articulate it. And it's not this grand gesture moment. It's them sitting and playing cards. And he says, I love you. And she doesn't say, I know. And she doesn't say, I love you back because she doesn't. She just wants to sit down and talk to him because he trusts her and he respects her. And she says, shut up and deal. And that's the end of the movie. And I loved that she didn't say, I love you back, Nikki.
I did too. It's so funny when you're talking about actions are going to be more to Fran than words will, because to your point, Sheldrake has been fucking her over for a very long time. Words don't mean anything. It's funny because that directly links into one of the big musical scenes in My Fair Lady, which is Eliza and Freddie. And I don't remember the exact lyrics, but if you love me, then show me. Because she's also saying, I don't give a shit about your pretty words. I am literally being taught pretty words to make something that is not true look true. I am a Cockney flower girl with nothing and no one. But just because I'm saying things in a certain way, people think I am a Hungarian princess. Words don't mean shit. And this is just after she's had a fight with Higgins. So I hate all these trappings. I hate all these words. If you love me, show me. And I just realized that correlation there, which I'm really enjoying as like a little bookend. I do enjoy that.
Yeah, I just looked it up. The song is called "Show Me," which is perfect. There you go. It was like one of my favorite songs of the whole thing, which I'd never heard before.
Mm-hmm. One of the,
but then she never lets him talk. He's literally standing outside, walking up and down your street. That's showing you.
Is it though? It's creepy. We're gonna talk about.
It's Friday. A little creepy.
One of the last things I want to say about Baxter. I talked about this film as a satire, kind of being in American Psycho as well. I think one of the reasons I like Baxter is he's the setup for the Tom Hanks, Hugh Grant romantic leads of the 90s and early aughts. They're very similar. Like Hugh Grant in Notting Hill, Tom Hanks in pretty much everything, except You've Got Mail because Joe Fox is a demon. But like he's like that nice guy fumbling. I'm really not a polished leading man. I'm dumb and bumbly and awkward and I never say the right thing. And I loved seeing that. Oh, wow, Baxter is Tom Hanks and Hugh Grant.
He's the archetype. It's some Colin Firth too, where you get that archetype of I'm not really good with women, I'm not really good with words, I don't know what to do, but I really like you. Just a nerdy, over enthusiastic puppy dog vibe, which like I love as a character, especially like we're romance nerds, right? Where it's I love the character that's like the backup plan, or like he's the fake dating, or he's the one you use to get someone else's attention, or he's just the friend and she's really interested in someone else. Like I love that character as part of a love triangle because he's the one that's reliable. He's the one that pays attention. He's the one that gets the good gifts. He's the one that shows up. He in the fuck, marry, kill, he's the one you marry.
Yes.
But he's not always the one that you fuck. You know?
Valid. We need all of them. Anything else you'd like to say about The Apartment before we sidestep into My Fair Lady?
So Some Hot came out in 1959. The Apartment came out in 1960. Same director, same writing partner, same lead actor. And both of them are these stories about people performing a role that they don't really want to be in order to survive in the world where like the power is outside of them. So in Some Like It Hot, Lemon and Curtis are both like in disguises to escape these like mafia members that they like saw a murder, right? So they have to go onto the ship. And then in The Apartment, like Baxter's disguise is more social. Like he's playing the role of being an accommodating, he's like being this good sport while inside he's dying. And both of them have women at the center of them who are being used by powerful men who are making like peace with the fact that they have no say in it. Marilyn Monroe, when she was playing Sugar in Some Like It Hot, and then McClane in The Apartment, they're both like warm, they're funny, they're not stupid, but they just recognize the limitations, and this is the ceiling, this is all we can get. But the difference is that Some Like It Hot is a comedy versus The Apartment has these much more tragic, dark side of things. Yeah, it was a really interesting like two sides of the same coin, same director, same actor, same archetype for the women of being like clever but trapped.
Yeah, I like that you said that, because if I link it back to the evolution of the Hays Code in the 40s, when we talked about His Girl Friday and Philadelphia Story, more so Philadelphia Story, desire is subtext and coded. In the 50s is when we started to see that shift, especially in Prince and the Showgirl. It's like domesticity cracking under the weight of female desire. It's almost like an eggshell, or like the little T-Rexes in Jurassic Park being like, yeah, I'm getting out of the egg. It's starting to crack. And the 60s really lean into coercion and like more structural critique of everything that has come before that. But I think the coercive piece is such a big one, because now they can show the coercion on screen and have it not be subtext.
Yeah. And I think also in Some Like It Hot, Jack Lemmon's character is dressed like a woman, and he has these men pursuing him because he looks like a woman, and so it's also this sort of, not philosophical, but it's an insight into a male's understanding of what it's like to be a woman, and to say no and have that not be taken into consideration, and just be like, I want you so I can have you, right? But I have money, but but I deserve you. And so there's a little bit of that coercion happening in that movie too, which is again very different than The Apartment, where Fran is a willing participant in this. She wants more than Sheldrake is willing to give. And you also see that Sheldrake's not the only one having these extramarital affairs. Every single executive that you meet throughout the course of this is using CC Baxter to be like, no, I have a girlfriend and she doesn't want to make out in the back of my car anymore. I need a real place to take her. And God forbid the executives who have money spend that money on a hotel room.
Yeah.
And Sheldrake, I think is it New Year's Eve where I couldn't even find a hotel in New York City, so we'll just drive out to Jersey. And she's like, what?
Yeah.
Or no, Atlantic City.
Yeah. Like the idea in both of these films is the women are being shaped into what the men want. They're being assessed by what the men want, and almost instrumentalized by the men in power to be like a sexual commodity.
Yeah.
Which, you know what's funny? I was looking up like what are the films that came like later? Like what is the next evolution? And when the Hays Code was officially abolished in 67, 68, the next two big films were The Graduate and Bonnie and Clyde.
Oh, shut up.
Yeah. very distinct.
Wait, we had the choice of the 1960s. We could have watched The Graduate, and we went with My Fair Lady.
It's not really though, like, it's not it's like shelved as a romance, but not a romance. And again, we've talked about this a lot with the modern definition of romance didn't really come in until the 70s or 80s with emotionally satisfying and optimistic ending. A little bit different. Yeah. And what I was reading about both of these things, and I don't have the quote attributed to this. I'm so sorry, whoever said this. They're very smart. But they said, these are love stories that the social order refuses to permit. The ending isn't romantic tragedy. It is sociological. The audience is meant to feel the constraint of hierarchy, not just the sadness of separation.
Oh.
Which I was like, oh, I don't know who said that. Thank you so much. It was very smart. And they're talking about some of the other films that came out in that time. And the reason why I didn't choose those films was because of this next line, which is sometimes the non-happy ever after is more romantic than the happy ever after because it respects the woman's autonomy more. So it's happy for the women, not necessarily for the couple. Which is why it fucking blows my mind that My Fair Lady has the ending that it did. Okay, we need to talk about My Fair Lady.
But also, My Fair Lady was not supposed to have the ending that it did. Do you want me to go into this rant first?
Yes, please.
Or should we get
talk to me about the Shaw ending and all of the arguments about this ending.
So George Bernard Shaw wrote Pygmalion. The end of Pygmalion is that Eliza leaves Henry for Freddie. She goes, she marries Freddie, she opens a fucking flower shop, which was her goal the entire time. And then they put Pygmalion on the stage. And the actors and the directors went, no, but she should end up with Henry. Why wouldn't she end up with Henry? So they changed it. And Shaw didn't know until the 100th production. He went to the 100th production and they had changed the ending entirely because the actors didn't like him leaving Henry. And so then when it got turned into a musical adaptation, then they moved into it and they made Henry the goal of the entire thing. And they basically forgot Freddie. And at that point, George Bernard Shaw was still alive and he came out and hated the adaptation to My Fair Lady. Just very critical of it, said this is not the way that it was supposed to go. He didn't see he saw the Julie Andrews version on Broadway on the West End, but he did not see the musical, the film version of it, which made it even that much more egregious. That was posthumous for him. But this was absolutely not the goal of George Bernard Shaw, who was actually like a feminist. He was in a lavender marriage of his own where they never consummated it. It was weird that the internet knows these things about this guy. How do they know? Which is a different conversation entirely. But he was into eugenics. He wasn't a perfect guy. No. It was the 30s and 40s, okay? I'm not saying that he was a perfect feminist, but the story was it's based on Pygmalion, which is this Greek myth of a woman made out of clay and turned into the perfect woman. And at least that was about Pygmalion. It was about the woman. Mm-hmm. And he was using it as a satirical piece. He was using it as an understanding of the middle class. He was trying to make social change with this play. And then the musical adaptation was just fuck all that. We have pretty songs and dresses.
Especially when they shot 2 endings to the film.
Did they?
Ending 1 was her saying goodbye to Higgins, marrying Freddie, and Eliza's in the flower shop. This second ending, they say it's a more ambiguous ending because Eliza just returns to Higgins' house and he's like, where are my slippers? Oh my God, true love. Oh my God, I'm so happy she's with this man who granted, I know way too much about Rex Harrison, how he treated Julie Andrews during the stage run of the show. He was not a nice person. He called Julie Andrews a cunt all the time. He goes, I can't work with this cunt. He was not a nice person. So I already have that baggage going into this film.
Same with Olivier, where it's he's such a good actor and he's also a dick.
Yeah, I don't love it. Yeah, okay.
But you could get away with it in the 50s and the 60s. It didn't matter if you were terrible to your coworkers. Now, in the post-Me Too movement, we have canceled actors who have been like this. And it's not always just sexual assault allegations. Sometimes just sexual harassment or being terrible in the workplace. You can't do that anymore. But the reason that it was acceptable until the Me Too movement is because it's always been acceptable on a film set for men to behave badly. Yeah. Starting from some of these big name actors who look great on film and were completely terrible to work with. And nobody cared because they made money.
Yeah. Which really and that really fits in with Shaw's intent with the original play. It was an attack on class and a critique of personal development and like the societal structures, because very much so in London, your accent determines where you end up. Yeah. And that's why Eliza's, you know what? I do want to have this flower shop. I will not be able to get that with my accent. So for her, she sees this as a tool of her upwards ascendancy, and Higgins is the man to give it to her, despite the fact that he is coming to her and be like, it's a bet with Colonel Pickering. It's very shades of She's All That. I bet that I can turn her into someone that sees like a princess, is what it eventually turns out to. And so he doesn't see her as a person. He sees her as a tool of his expertise. I get to show off how good I am. And she sees him as a vehicle or a tool for her to get what she wants.
Yeah, social mobility for her. It makes sense.
It makes sense from that perspective, but it does not make sense that eventually becomes romantic, because if we look at all the different times, so she moves in with him, she's given clothes and she's bathed and she's screaming through the whole thing of when she's being bathed. I'm like, oh, this is awkward. Yeah. But
and being stripped against her will.
Yeah, it's an awkward scene to watch. Ugh. And you really do see this when he says, I'm going to house you, I'm going to clothe you, I'm going to feed you, and if you are bad, you're going to go to prison. This is what's going to happen to you. She has, honestly, what it reminded me of was like, this is elements of mafia romance, but
it is a little bit.
Is an asshole, right? I'm going to do this. You're going to do this. You're going to show up in public this way. You live in my house. This is where you stay. And I'm going to parade you out in the way that I deem appropriate.
It is a little bit mafia.
It's a little bit mafia dark
without
romance
the murder, without the family situation. But yeah, there's some like controlling alpha bullshit going on.
Yeah, like Higgins even has a song that he sings saying he's never going to let a woman into his life. And normally you would look at that and go, oh, she's going to be the one to change him. She's going to be the one that helps him see that women are people. But he doesn't. And he won't. And
the closest he comes, and I read the Wikipedia. I talked about it with my boy Claude. I know what happened without having watched the final section, because I just couldn't do it anymore. It's the equivalent of a DNF, but also just like throwing something at my TV. But the song that he sings to be like, oh, I miss her, is called I've Grown Accustomed to Her Face.
Yep.
It's not like, oh, I miss talking to her, fell in love with her laugh.
She lights up my life.
My life feels empty without her. No, the fucking love song is called I've Grown Accustomed to Her Face. You know what I've grown accustomed to? Having that chair. Doesn't mean I'm in love with it. It just is convenient. It's there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hey, it's the equivalent of you'll do as a pickup line.
It really is.
I've grown accustomed to your face, so you should just do whatever I say for the rest of your life. Fuck you, man.
He has such an infantilizing view of her, and is constantly like, I wrote in my notes when I was watching this, I was like, this Eliza is a dumb bitch attitude is not doing it for me. He's constantly talking down to her, laughing at her, and he thinks so little of her that when he and Colonel Pickering order clothes for her, they don't fit because they didn't even think to have her come along to get measured. They just order clothes and like, they don't fit you. That's your fault.
Yeah.
What?
And let's not discount the fact that he verbally and physically abused her. It wasn't just, oh, baby girl, you don't get any clothes today. Your clothes don't fit too bad. It was like, you're not going to eat dinner until you finish this. Like, her voice was hoarse from doing those like vocal exercises for hours and hours. He never complimented her. He like pushed her beyond her physical limits. And then suddenly she's able to say, the rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain. And he takes fucking credit for it.
It's paternalistic. Like, having a man be a vehicle for a woman's upward ascendancy isn't new. Like, it happens in billions, right? And the thing, when we talk about Eliza getting into the upper class just by virtue of a facade that she's built through her accent, when we have the Ascot scene where they do the Ascot gavotte, which is, this is wonderful, this is so exciting, but like all the upper class are shown to be bored as hell and very like homogenous. They all look the same, they're standing the same, they talk the same. And you look at that and go, why is she aspiring to this? I understand why she is, but like, why is this an aspirational status in life? Which I think is made funnier by the fact that we run into her dad, Alfred Doolittle, at the end of the film.
I wanted to talk about her dad. Yeah.
And he comes out and she runs into him because she's left Henry and she's like, you don't respect me. You don't care about me. I'm going to leave. And she goes back to her part of London and she sees her dad coming out of a bar and he's all dressed up and he's speaking differently to people as he's leaving. And she's like, what happened to you? And this is your fault. I've been made respectable against my will. By the way, I'm getting married tomorrow. Because I remember some guy left him his entire fortune. And now
it was a joke. It was a joke that Henry Higgins was like, he's a great negotiator. Tell this American who wants to talk to a negotiator. And then the guy died and left him a fortune and like not even just like money to spend, but like an annual account to him. Yeah, the character of Elfie, who sings 2 songs, both of which are a million years long, starts with a little bit of luck, which is Elfie's poor. Yep. And with a little bit of luck, he'll never have to work a day in his life and other people will just take care of him because the welfare state, right? Or I'll just take advantage of other people, I'll leech off of them. And that's how poor people are perceived. Is we don't want to work, we just want to drink. And then you could Get Me to the Church on Time, also a million years long, where it's, I became respectable. This sucks.
Against my will. Yeah. And by the way, I have to get married.
I have to get married because the woman who wouldn't marry me when I was poor now wants to marry me, and I have no say in it. So poor you.
In the morning. Yeah. It's very catchy. Yeah.
And that's why the movie works and why people liked it, is you had these ascot costumes that are gorgeous. And the ball where you have everyone in those gorgeous dresses. And then you get these songs that are super catchy.
Long, but catchy. I fast-forwarded through so many of them.
They're so repetitive.
Yeah.
But that was the production at the time. The 3-hour movie was something to be aspired to, not something you got a chance to breathe and let it stretch. And that's something that they don't allow movies to do anymore. And to an extent, thankfully, because our attention spans have gotten so much shorter than they were 65 years ago. Elfie is this tragic character in 2 ways. The first is that his daughter is trying to have this... She's trying to be a respectable flower seller. She's trying to make money. And then her dad comes along and is just, okay, you owe me money because you're my daughter. And I don't want to work. So there's that. And then he has money and she's out on her luck at this point. He's like, too bad.
One of the big holes in My Fair Lady is that we get very little of Eliza's opinion on things. We get none of her internal life. We get no real dialogue from her that explains how she's feeling other than her song with Freddie of Show Me. And she, Just You Wait, Henry Higgins, Just You Wait. Like, we get that she's upset. But we don't know how she feels about being presented this way in society. No. We don't understand what she's thinking when she gets presented to the Queen of Transylvania and her son or her nephew wants to dance with her. And this other kind of linguist guy, they end up tricking because she is surely a Hungarian princess. And Colonel Pickering and Higgins are like, we did that. How does Eliza feel that people think she is a Hungarian princess? What does that mean for her? And of course, she's got Freddie, who she met through a friend of Higgins' mother at an event, and he's instantly in love with her in a way that is, I still find, very creepy. But we don't get a lot of Eliza's opinions on things and what she thinks is going to happen later. She does, in one of her last arguments with Henry, essentially say, I'm leaving, but what is mine? What is mine? And Higgins is like, I don't really care. And she's, I'm not taking anything with me that you could send coppers after me for. So this clothing, the things I have access to, I'm not taking any of this with me because you will turn around and bite me in the ass. Not in a fun way.
God, she's so smart and so clever. And you said, like, we don't have her access to her internal monologue because it didn't matter what Eliza thinks. And she has no one in whom to confide. She is isolated. The closest that she has is Colonel Pickering, who's much nicer to her than Henry Higgins. And yeah, he's a little older, but like, I wouldn't have minded if she'd ended up with Colonel Pickering. Because he like sees her as a person, and he's constantly saying to Henry, you need to feed her. You need let her go to sleep. This is unrealistic. This is unfair. And Higgins is like, no, she's fine.
Yes, yes and no. There is the song that Colonel Pickering has to Higgins. You did it. Oh, you did it. You did it. You did it. She is famous, and it was all you that did it. Like,
I know he's not a perfect character either. I'm not saying that, but like, at least he had some semblance of he's concerned about Eliza and not just the end goal. But like, this movie, it may have passed the Bechdel test just because of Eliza talking to Higgins's mom at one point, but I think it was only about Higgins.
Yeah.
and how shitty he was. And the mom was like, you're treating her like shit. Of course she can stay with me. And she recognized it, but she can't do anything when her son's being a jerk. The women have no autonomy or agency in this movie. So who cares whether Eliza is proud of herself? She's clearly not, because she's standing there afterwards while they're singing You Did It. And just like, you can see her face falling, but nobody asks her.
No.
Because it doesn't matter what she thinks.
She has a line that she yells at Higgins where she says, "What a dominated fool I was to think you were the earth and sky," which I'm not here to kink shame, but like that type of degradation is not doing it for me.
Yeah.
But even then I look at that and go, when did you think he was the earth and sky?
Yeah.
He's just an asshole. So ultimately she leaves because Freddie has been in love with her the whole time. He has that whole song like On the Street Where You Live. He's been like hanging out on her street in the evenings for
creepy.
days at a time. He's I love you, I love you. They've had one conversation that maybe lasted a minute.
He's writing
and a
her
half.
letters.
Yeah, I was
day.
like, I know we all look at Freddie and go, he's the better choice. Of the two of them, he's the better choice, but I don't think he's a good choice. But she leaves at the end and she's, I'm going to go marry Freddie or just be elsewhere. Screw you, Henry. And then he has that song, I've Grown Accustomed to Her Face, and he starts playing the records he has of her doing her vocal exercises. And then she walks in and I think he says to her, like, where are my slippers or something like that.
Slippers?
Yeah. And that's the romantic ending. What happens to her after this? Everybody in London thinks she's a Hungarian princess. What happens next?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, because Higgins did it.
He did it.
And all that matters is that he was successful. Nikki.
Okay.
Nikki.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on The Apartment or My Fair Lady?
I'm so glad The Apartment exists.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it.
I'm so glad that I've never seen children put on My Fair Lady. Like, I thought that it had already been in that list of, oh yeah, I've seen Guys and Dolls. I've seen Damn Yankees. I've seen My Fair Lady. I'm so glad that I never saw an experience where children accidentally memorized this musical as a romance. Because I'm sure they have, because it's in the zeitgeist of this is one of the classic musicals. Yeah. No, I'm so glad.
Well, you have the makeover convention coming into later rom-coms like Grease, like Pretty Woman, like She's All That the woman is only really seen as valuable, attractive, desirable after she's had that makeover. So
even
that definitely,
Clueless, like when you have Ty being made over by Cher, it's not always the men later on, but yeah, I think that we will certainly refer back to this in movies in the 70s, 80s, 90s as we're watching those.
Even as much as we hate it.
But it's an archetype, right? Like there are certain ways that this thread is continuing to show up and this pattern is continuing to show up and hopefully be subverted and be questioned in a way that it wasn't questioned 65 years ago.
I don't think I have anything else to say about these two films. Do you? Or do we want to go for the ship?
What is it that you're shipping the most about the films of these two films? We won't say all of the rom-coms of the 60s, but these two films, what do you ship the most?
That is challenging. Because if I look at structure, I like that we're able to see more of these things on screen. And I like that in a way, I like that we get to see the coercion now. Because I think as women, we are very much aware of the coercion that's a part of the system, especially when we talk about workplace inequality, which both of these kind of have, even if My Fair Lady isn't explicitly set in a workplace. It's about her career. It's about what she wants to do with her life. So I like that we get to see that, because up until now, it was just subtext and people who had experienced it understood that it was there, but audiences didn't get it in their face that this is unfair. This is what it actually is. So I do like that we get to see those things on screen now, and we're certainly going to start to see more of it as we get into the 70s, 80s, and 90s. That becomes more and more explicit rather than implicit. And just for The Apartment specifically, I really like CC Baxter. He's a fun character. He is the Tom Hanks and Hugh Grant of the 60s, and I really enjoyed that. Meg, what about you? What are you shipping?
Everything you just said, but since you said it, I feel like I can't say it again.
Ditto. Moving on.
No, I liked the women characters. Mm-hmm. I really liked Fran Kubelik, where she was a little jaded. She was a little cynical. She didn't buy into the hype of all of this because she had been burned and she had a backstory and she had some depth to her, and it wasn't a perfect life, but like this was the best that she could do.
Yep.
And I liked that even if Henry Higgins is the worst, I liked Eliza and just you wait, Henry Higgins, just you wait. Like she had
murdered him.
I know. I would have watched that.
I would.
But she was a spitfire and she was delightful. And I understood why people resonated with Eliza, because she did go through a lot of difficulty, in part due to the protagonist of the movie, which is Henry. Like, she was used, she was abused, but she never lost that sparkle and that shine, which is really a testament to Audrey Hepburn's acting skills. Julie Andrews, if she was able to pull it off for so long too, at a much colder audience, because Eliza's not an easy character to play. So yeah, I'll go with those. And also, okay, the moment in the apartment. This might be my chip the most. The moment in the apartment when Fran's brother-in-law punches Baxter.
Yeah, it's a great scene.
And Baxter just looks so happy to be like, he thinks that we're together. Like, he believes that I could pull a girl like that. And he believes that I hurt her because he thinks that we could really be a thing. And that's cool. Like, it was such a like messed up moment in the look on his face to be like, yeah, he hit me. He thinks I'm a threat.
Yeah. I tell you, in a world of Sheldrakes and Henry Higgins, be more like Fran's brother-in-law.
I was going to say be more like Baxter. But no, be more like Fran's brother-in-law. Go protect women. Believe women. Take care of women.
Beautiful. Before we get into the question of what we are shipping this week, it would do us such a solid if you would head on over to your podcast provider of choice, subscribe, leave a rating, leave a review. It helps all the algorithmic things do their thing so that more people can find out about us, and we would love it if you do it. I know podcast hosts ask this all the time, but that's because it's useful. Very useful to us. It helps our upwards ascendancy so that one day we can own a flower shop. Thank you so much.
We will not own a flower shop. Flowers are a
You don't know that. You don't know that.
No, I'm an aunt who's a florist. We're not. We will buy a bookstore, Nikki.
I could do.
If we're gonna buy anything, we could do a bookstore.
I can do a bookstore. Meg, what are you shipping this week?
Okay, so in the last episode, or maybe I don't know what order we're releasing these things in. In the novella episode, you shipped
2 episodes
It started
ago.
with the text by Jax Calder, which was delightful. And so obviously, I went back and I read Moderating Love, which was also a novella in the same series. They both have the same like online platform. It's about 2 men who moderate Find Your Glow, which is a platform where people are sharing about like misconnections and how they fell in love and queer love stories. And these 2 characters were just so delightful, but it was a bit of a You've Got Mail situation. So it's about these 2 guys who are both moderators in the forum, and one of them is very like optimistic and believes every single meet cute that's listed on there and automatically like flags it as, yes, this will be passed. And then the other one uses the name Truth Guardian because he doesn't believe them. And so he goes through and does all of these very particular spreadsheets of here are the chances that this is true are very low. No, they wouldn't have met at a Trader Joe's and had a 3-hour power outage.
Because they have generators.
They have generators at Trader Joe's, and there are no Trader Joe's within this radius that had a 3-hour power outage at the timeline that they said. And he does all of this background work. And then they get set up on a blind date by Trevor's brother, and it's insta-love. And so Trevor, who is Truth Guardian on the forum, is, oh my God, everything that I believed about how these meet cute stories can't exist is now crumbling under my feet because I feel so strongly. I didn't know it was possible to feel this.
Yeah.
And then the next morning they wake up and one of them starts drinking out of his like forum mug and oh my God, you're Truth Guardian. Oh. And it's such a great, quick, delightful story. So if you're looking for an adorable novella of a bit of a You've Got Mail, grumpy sunshine, check out Moderating Love by Jax Calder.
Love it. It's a great book. I'm a huge fan.
All right, what are you shipping this week, Nick?
I am going so the opposite way with some dark shit. So the Silvercrest You series by Willow Dixon. I read all the books that are currently out. I think the next one comes out in a few months. I read it all in one weekend. This is dark, y'all. It's new adult. I don't know why I love this as much as I did. Book 1 is called Wicked Games, and the main characters of Killian and Felix. So Silvercrest U is positioned as this like university that is only the elite of the elite get to go to this. There are secret societies so that when you get put into a house or a dorm or a frat at this university, like that's because you are grandfathered in, you have to be a legacy to go to this school. You're already indoctrinated into this secret society. So around campus, like people carry guns. There are hackers amongst the students. They are like people are getting assaulted and murdered, death killed, like all of these things. Like it's such high drama. that it definitely took me a little bit at the beginning to get into it and just accept these guys are 18 to 22. Of course they have guns. Of course they're very much in this secret society. Of course they are hackers. And of course they are not involving adults in any of this. But this series, y'all, is really fucking hot. The first book is Killian and Felix. They are stepbrothers who have never really gotten along. And Killian is like high up in his kind of frat secret society structure. And Felix is like a fuck the establishment kind of guy. But because he married into this family, they're like, you have to go to this school now. And even though you're not quite a legacy, like you have to go, you have to come in. You're not a part of the secret societies. You don't get to know anything, but you come in. So he has to room with Killian. Of course, there's so much opposites attract, like hate, fucking, and drama that goes into this. But also there have been many attempts on Felix's life. He is a swimmer. Someone attempts to drown him in the pool. People shoot at him, and I think it's 4 or 5 books that are out so far at the time of this recording, but it's a long storyline in between them of the guys of this particular house or frat on this campus solving a larger mystery that has these larger implications. But yeah, if you want like dark drama, new adult, I love the Silvercrest U series by Willow Dixon. It's very nice.
Wow, that was a pendulum swing to go from
I know, such
very
a huge
light
swing.
But that's how we do it for States and Soulmates. We're not just one part of the genre. We'll take all the genre.
I do all of it. And that is it for us this week. Thank you so much, Soulmates, for coming on this journey through the 1960s with us. If you'd like to support the show, a few things you can do absolutely for free. As we said, number 1 is rate, review, and subscribe on your podcast provider of choice. Head on over and give us a follow on our social media platforms. We are at First Dates and Soulmates pretty much everywhere. I'm having a lot of fun on Threads. Come on over. If you're listening to this on Spotify, please leave us a comment on the episode. We love to read those. And if you do have a little bit of money that you'd like to share with us here on the show, you can check out our merch. It's on TeePublic, listed in the show notes. You can subscribe to the show on Substack. Do it for 1 month. Do it for many months. And we are also now offering sponsorships for the show. So check out all of the very nice packages and great information that Meg has put together, also linked for you in the show notes. Coming up next week, we are talking to Allison Whaley of Bothered Stories about bite-sized erotica in your inbox. Great things are coming. We'll see you next week.